From channeling hive mind powers to destroying demogorgons with his mind, Will Byers walked away from Stranger Things Season 5 Volume 1's finale looking like he'd finally unlocked the weapon that could end Vecna's reign of terror. After years of being the victim, the first child taken, the Mind Flayer's spy, the kid who could sense danger, Will finally fought back in that explosive Episode 4 showdown. But there's a crucial difference between borrowing power through a psychic connection and actually possessing that power yourself. In this video, we're going to examine Will's abilities versus Vecna's complete arsenal and ask one critical question. Does Will's newfound strength actually give him a chance against the architect of the Upside Down? The answer might disappoint you, or it might confirm what you've suspected all along. The source of power. Borrowed connection versus original mastery. When Will destroyed the Demogorgons in Episode 4, Sorcerer, he channeled Vecna's powers through his connection to the hive mind, not through abilities of his own. In the climactic battle at the Military Access Control Zone, Will faced Vecna for the first time since his disappearance in 1983. As Demogorgons surrounded his friends and Vecna taunted him about being the weakest child, Will's eyes turned white, and he telekinetically crushed multiple Demogorgons simultaneously. The Duffer Brothers confirmed in their Variety interview that Will's powers work differently than Eleven's innate abilities. Ross Duffer explained that Will channels these powers from Vecna and uses it, sort of puppeteering, and that if he's not close to the hive mind, he's not able to access or tap it. Matt Duffer added that he taps into the hive mind, and then he can manipulate anything within the hive, but cannot affect objects outside the hive mind connection, like opening a door. Will got these abilities because he was hooked into the hive mind during his time in the Upside Down. Will's power display in Episode 4 was impressive, but it came with a fatal limitation. He's not generating his own psychic energy. He's redirecting Vecna's. The moment he used those powers, he also experienced a nosebleed, the same physical strain that marks psychokinesis in Brenner's test subjects. Will essentially hacked into Vecna's network, but he doesn't own the network. He's a user with borrowed credentials, not the administrator. Vecna's powers originated from within himself as Henry Creel, developed independently before any experimentation, and grew stronger through consuming his victims over decades. The prequel play Stranger Things, The First Shadow, revealed that young Henry Creel vanished near a cave system in Nevada for 12 hours and returned with psychic abilities after encountering what would become known as the Mind Flayer's essence. As a child in 1959, Henry used these powers to murder his mother Virginia and sister Alice by breaking their bones and essentially sucking their eyes into their heads. Dr. Martin Brenner took Henry as Subject 001, the first test subject at Hawkins' lab, and all subsequent children with powers, including 11, received abilities through experiments based on Henry's unique biology. According to Dr. Brenner's explanation in Season 4, when Vecna kills, he doesn't simply kill, he consumes. He takes everything from his victims, everything they are and everything they ever will be, their memories, their abilities. After 11 banished him to the Upside Down in 1979, Vecna encountered particle clouds and used his psychic abilities to shape them into the Mind Flayer, creating the spider-like entity based on his childhood obsession with Black Widow spiders. Vecna's powers aren't borrowed. They're the result of nearly 5 decades of consumption and evolution. Every person he's killed has made him stronger, adding their memories and potentially their abilities to his own arsenal. Where Will channels temporary access through a connection that could be severed, Vecna has built an empire of absorbed victims into his very being. His abilities started as telekinesis and telepathy, then evolved into reality-warping capabilities that let him kill across dimensions, possess multiple victims simultaneously, and reshape entire realms. Vecna doesn't need to tap into anything external because he is the source. The fundamental difference is creator versus conduit, and that gap is insurmountable. Winner, Vecna. Will's channeled abilities are impressive for a human, but they're literally Vecna's own strength redirected. The student can't defeat the master with the master's own playbook. But Will's power source isn't his only limitation. The scope of what he can actually do with those borrowed abilities reveals an even starker difference. Range of abilities. Limited hive control versus multidimensional manipulation. Will can only affect creatures and entities directly connected to Vecna's hive mind, and his control is limited to proximity-based puppeteering of these monsters. In Episode 4, Will demonstrated the ability to sense when upside-down creatures were near through the goosebumps on his neck that served as an early warning system throughout Volume 1. When he finally tapped into his powers, he could see through the Demogorgon's eyes and manipulate their movements, ultimately crushing them telekinetically. According to Matt Duffer, Will can manipulate anything within the hive, but explicitly can't open a door because the door is not part of the hive mind. Robin theorized that Will acts like a receiver, with his connection to Vecna getting stronger with proximity, similar to a radio needing a signal. The showrunners confirmed Will's abilities are proximity-based and derived from his connection to Vecna, meaning he must be physically near the hive mind to access these powers. Will's toolkit is specialized, but severely restricted. He can control Demogorgons, Demobats, and other hive mind creatures, which makes him valuable in specific combat scenarios against those monsters. But he can't use telekinesis on regular objects, can't enter people's minds, can't create visions or hallucinations, and can't open gates between dimensions. His power set is essentially limited to redirecting creatures that are already under Vecna's command, useful in the right circumstances, but far from a complete arsenal. It's the difference between having admin access to one subsystem versus having root access to the entire network. Against Vecna's full capabilities, Will's abilities are a narrow countermeasure, not a comprehensive threat. Vecna possesses the full spectrum of psychic abilities, including advanced telepathy, remote telekinesis, mental manipulation, reality-bending illusions, dimensional control, and biological consumption that transcends the limitations of hive mind control. Vecna's demonstrated abilities span multiple categories of psychic power. His telepathic skills include reading minds, searching memories for traumatic experiences, and creating realistic hallucinations that trap victims in their worst fears, as seen with Chrissy Cunningham, Fred Benson, Patrick McKinney, and Max Mayfield in Season 4. His telekinetic powers work remotely across dimensions, allowing him to break his victims' bones, levitate them, and kill them while remaining in the Upside Down. He can astral project his consciousness beyond his physical body to explore Hawkins and identify potential victims. In Season 5, Episode 4, Vecna effortlessly redirected weapons fire back at soldiers and pulled the pin on the grenade telekinetically during his attack on the Military Access Control Zone. His signature ability, the Curse, creates a psychic link to victims that lasts approximately 7 days, during which he induces pain through nosebleeds and headaches before ultimately killing them and absorbing their essence. Most significantly, each kill opens a gate to the Upside Down at the murder site, with his ultimate plan requiring 4 gates to merge dimensions completely. Where Will's powers are borrowed and limited to hive mind manipulation, Vecna operates on an entirely different level. He doesn't just control monsters, he controls minds, manipulates reality itself, and can kill people without physical contact from an entirely different dimension. His abilities have no proximity requirement because he shaped the Mind Flayer to act as his vessel, extending his reach anywhere the particles can travel. Will can turn Vecna's weapons against him in specific scenarios, but he can't defend against Vecna entering his mind, can't counter the hallucinations, can't prevent Vecna from killing him remotely if Vecna decides Will is a threat rather than a tool. The scope of Vecna's powers encompasses everything Will can do, plus an entire arsenal Will cannot access. Winner: Vecna. Will controls a subset of monsters. Vecna controls monsters, minds, dimensions, and the very fabric of reality between worlds. But before we examine how Vecna's decades of experience compound this advantage, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the power gap we're about to reveal only gets wider from here. Combat experience. First real fight versus 46 years of evolution. Will's use of his powers in Episode 4 represented his first true offensive action, awakened through emotional breakthrough rather than trained combat experience. Throughout 5 seasons, Will has been a victim or observer, never an active combatant. He spent Season 1 trapped in the Upside Down, surviving but not fighting. In Season 2, the Mind Flayer possessed him and used him as a spy, with Will's friends and family eventually burning the entity out of him. Seasons 3 and 4 saw Will functioning as a danger sensor, able to feel when upside-down creatures were near, but unable to act on that knowledge. His power awakening in Episode 4 came after Robin's speech about self-acceptance, when he drew on happy memories of building Castle Byers with Jonathan and his friendship with Mike. Noah Schnapp told Netflix's Tudum that getting to be strong and direct and powerful is just so satisfying as an actor, specifically because Will never gets to use his own voice. The Duffer Brothers confirmed this was one of the earliest ideas for Season 5, asking, what if Will were able to harness this connection and use it against our villains? The entire arc represents Will's first time taking offensive action in the entire series. Will's heroic moment in Episode 4 was powerful character development, but it doesn't translate to combat expertise. He had one successful engagement where surprise and emotional breakthrough gave him an edge. He lacks training in using these abilities strategically, has no experience defending against psychic attack, and has never faced an opponent who understands these powers better than he does. Will's power usage is instinctive and emotional, which makes it unpredictable, but also unreliable. He doesn't know the limits of what he can do, doesn't understand the mechanics of how the hive mind connection works, and most critically, just discovered these abilities days ago at most. There's a massive difference between one triumphant moment and actual combat proficiency. Vecna has been developing, testing, and perfecting his psychic abilities since 1947, giving him 78 years of total experience and 46 years specifically honing his powers in the Upside Down. Henry Creel discovered his abilities as a child in the late 1950s, after his Nevada cave encounter. By 1959, he had refined them enough to commit calculated murders of his mother and sister, framing his father for the crimes. As Subject 001 at Hawkins' lab throughout the 1970s, he studied other test subjects, manipulated 11 into removing his inhibitor chip, and massacred everyone in the facility in 1979 before 11 banished him to the Upside Down. In that realm, he spent the next 4 years, before Will's disappearance in 1983, exploring, discovering the Mind Flayer particles, and reshaping them into his spider form avatar. From 1983 through 1986, Vecna orchestrated the Demogorgon attacks, the Mind Flayer possessions, and Billy Hargrove's flaying, all while learning and adapting his strategies. In Season 4, he developed his curse technique, learning to identify victims with trauma, stalk them through their memories, and time his kills to open gates precisely where needed. Matt Duffer revealed that in Season 5, Vecna has changed and is stronger and scarier than ever, with new real-world abilities, having learned from his Season 4 defeat and evolved further. Experience isn't just about time, it's about application, failure, adaptation, and refinement. Vecna has actively used his powers to kill, control, manipulate, and conquer across multiple timelines and dimensions. He's learned what works and what doesn't through trial and error. He's faced 11 multiple times, survived, adapted his tactics, and came back stronger. He's studied the weaknesses of psychic opponents, understands how to defend his mind while attacking others, and has contingency plans built from systematic experimentation. When Will faces Vecna, he's bringing days of instinctive usage against someone who has turned psychic combat into an art form. This isn't a fair fight. It's a demonstration of why raw potential means nothing without the knowledge to wield it effectively. Winner? Vecna. Will's emotional breakthrough gave him access to power. Vecna's systematic refinement over decades turned power into precision, strategy, and lethality that no amount of Will's determination can match. Will's limitations become even more apparent when examining what happens if the connection he depends on gets severed. Sustainability and independence. Permanent dependence versus self-contained power. Will's powers exist only as long as his connection to the hive mind remains intact, and multiple factors could sever that connection permanently, rendering him powerless. The Duffer Brothers explicitly confirmed that Will's abilities aren't his own, but are channeled through Vecna's hive mind network. Ross Duffer stated that the powers aren't within him, and that if he's not close to the hive mind, he's not able to access or tap it. This creates multiple points of failure. If Vecna is defeated and the hive mind collapses, Will loses access immediately. If Vecna severs the connection deliberately, Will becomes powerless. If the Upside Down is sealed permanently, the proximity requirement means Will can't access the hive mind from the regular world. Analysis from entertainment reporters noted that Will's twist isn't permanent, and that it's pretty easy to tell when Will is likely to stop being able to use the abilities. whenever the show's most likely endings occur, whether Vecna's defeat or the Upside Down's closure. The abilities are fundamentally contingent on circumstances beyond Will's control. Will's powers come with an expiration date built into their very nature. He's tapping into someone else's network, which means the network owner can revoke access at any time. It's the ultimate vulnerability. Your greatest weapon depends entirely on maintaining a link to your enemy. If Vecna realizes Will is using the hive mind against him, he could sever the connection, trap Will in a psychic loop, or turn the connection into a weapon by feeding Will false information through the creatures he's trying to control. Will's abilities aren't sustainable because they were never truly his to begin with. The moment the larger conflict resolves in any direction, Will reverts to being a regular person with PTSD and a supernatural sensitivity, but no actual combat capability. Vecna's powers are intrinsic to his being, continuously growing stronger through consumption, and cannot be severed or removed without killing him entirely. When Eleven banished Henry Creel to the Upside Down in 1979, the dimension's toxic atmosphere and lightning gradually transformed him into Vecna, but his powers remained and actually amplified. Dr. Brenner explained that Vecna consumes his victims, taking everything they are and everything they ever will be, their memories, their abilities. This means every kill, from his mother and sister in 1959, through the Hawkins Lab massacre in 1979, to Chrissy, Fred, Patrick, and his attempted murder of Max in 1986, plus the 12 children he's collecting in Season 5, adds to his power base. His abilities are embedded in his transformed biology and psychic essence. Even when seriously injured at the end of Season 4, when Nancy shot him and Steve threw Molotov cocktails, Vecna survived and regenerated, returning in Season 5 stronger than before. Jamie Campbell Bower noted that Vecna in Season 5 is Vecna 2.0, with noticeable physical upgrades including longer vines on his head and shoulders, and Matt Duffer confirmed he has new, real-world abilities that make him like Freddy on steroids. Vecna's power structure is completely self-contained and actively expansive. He doesn't rely on external connections that can be cut. His abilities are woven into the fabric of what he is. Every encounter, every battle, every victim makes him stronger rather than depleting him. Where Will's powers could vanish instantly if the right conditions change, Vecna's powers would require killing him completely to stop, and even that's proven difficult given his regenerative capabilities. This is the difference between a feature and a flaw. Will's hive mind connection is a feature he can't control. Vecna's independent power is the foundation of his existence. One can be removed with a switch, the other requires complete annihilation. Winner, Vecna. Will fights with access that could vanish in an instant. Vecna fights with accumulated strength that grows with every victory and survives every defeat. What do you think? Could Will's emotional connection to his friends and his understanding of Vecna's victims give him an edge the raw power comparison doesn't show? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Physical limitations. Human vulnerability versus transformed resilience. Despite his psychic connection to the hive mind, Will Byers remains a physiologically normal 17-year-old human with all the vulnerabilities that entails. Throughout the series, Will has demonstrated the same physical limitations as any other teenager. He required rescue from the Upside Down in Season 1 because he couldn't survive there indefinitely. He needed medical intervention after his possession in Season 2. In Season 5, Episode 4, after using his powers to destroy the Demogorgons, he immediately got a nosebleed, the same physical strain response seen in 11 and other test subjects when they overexert their abilities. When Vecna lifted him telekinetically during their confrontation, Will was completely helpless until he accessed the hive mind connection. He still needs to eat, sleep, and breathe. He can be injured by conventional weapons, physical attacks, or environmental hazards. The show has never suggested that his connection to the Upside Down has altered his fundamental human biology. Will's human body is both his anchor and his Achilles heel. While Eleven also shares human physiology, she at least has offensive capabilities that can protect her body through telekinetic shields and attacks. Will's borrowed powers only work on hive mind creatures, meaning he has no psychic defense against physical threats from normal sources. If Vecna attacked him with anything other than vine mind monsters, debris thrown telekinetically, environmental hazards, or even just conventional weapons manipulated from afar, Will would have no supernatural defense. His body is as fragile as it was when the Demogorgon took him in 1983. Power without corresponding physical protection creates a devastating vulnerability. Vecna's transformation in the Upside Down fundamentally altered his physiology, granting him enhanced durability, regenerative capabilities, and resistance to damage that would kill a normal human. When Eleven sent Henry Creel to the Upside Down in 1979, the Dimension's environment, described as having abnormal lightning and toxic atmosphere, gradually disfigured him but simultaneously transformed him into something far more durable than human. By the time he appeared as Vecna in Season 4, his body had become partially comprised of writhing tendrils, with his left hand transformed into a massive clawed paw capable of fully enveloping a human head. At the end of Season 4, Nancy Wheeler shot him multiple times with a shotgun, and Steve Harrington threw Molotov cocktails that set him on fire, yet Vecna survived. By Season 5, Episode 4, he appeared fully healed with additional physical enhancements, longer vines growing from his head and shoulders, visible scars from the previous damage, but otherwise showing no permanent impairment. Bauer noted that Vecna in Season 5 underwent a complete body transformation and became noticeably more physically imposing, appearing jacked compared to his Season 4 appearance. Vecna's body isn't human anymore. It's something else entirely, something that plays by different rules. The same transformation that made him monstrous also made him incredibly difficult to kill. He survived what would be immediately fatal damage to any human, then healed and came back stronger. His physical form seems to be as much a construct of his psychic will as it is biological matter, given how the tendrils integrate with his body. This means attacking him physically requires overwhelming force repeated multiple times, and even then, there's no guarantee of permanent death. Where Will could be killed by a single well-placed bullet or blade, Vecna absorbs damage that would kill a person 10 times over and regenerates. It's not just a power advantage, it's a fundamental difference in what it means to be alive and vulnerable. Winner: Vecna. Will bleeds like any other teenager. Vecna survives shotgun blasts and comes back from being burned alive with upgrades. Physical combat isn't even in the same universe. These individual advantages are devastating enough, but the real threat isn't any single superiority. It's how they combine into a strategic intelligence that Will simply cannot match. Strategic intelligence. Emotional reactive fighting versus calculated long-term planning. Will accessed his abilities through emotional breakthrough in a moment of desperation, with no strategic planning, tactical training, or understanding of how to use them beyond instinctive reaction. Will's power awakening in Episode 4 came during a crisis moment when Demogorgons were about to kill his friends. After Vecna's taunts about Will being the weakest child who broke so easily, Will remembered Robin's advice about accepting who he truly is. He drew on positive emotional memories, building Castle Byers, meeting Mike for the first time, drawing with crayons while Joyce watched lovingly. And these memories triggered his ability to access the hive mind. The sequence was entirely reactive and emotional, rather than planned or strategic. Noah Schnapp explained that Will's character arc involved finally being able to harness these incredible powers after dealing with so many emotions and inner conflicts, suggesting the powers emerged from psychological growth rather than tactical preparation. The Duffer Brothers framed it as Will needing to grow as a human and become a fully formed version of who he is, before he could harness these incredible powers. Emotion is a powerful motivator, but it's a terrible tactical foundation. Will's power activation works like an adrenaline response, effective in the moment of crisis, but impossible to sustain or deploy with precision. He doesn't understand the mechanics of what he's doing, has no training in how to maximize effectiveness, and most critically, hasn't thought about the strategic implications of using Vecna's own power against him. What happens when Vecna expects it next time? Will used surprise in Episode 4, but surprise only works once. Without strategic thinking, tactical adaptability, and planned approaches to different scenarios, Will's power becomes predictable. Vecna operates 10 moves ahead. Will is still learning to recognize when he's in the game. Vecna has demonstrated sophisticated long-term planning spanning decades, orchestrating events across multiple timelines and dimensions to achieve his goal of merging the Upside Down with the real world. Vecna's strategic thinking operates on a timescale most humans can't conceptualize. After arriving in the Upside Down in 1979, he spent 4 years exploring, discovering the Mind Flayer particles, and shaping them into a tool for his plans before initiating his first move, the Demogorgon taking Will Byers in 1983. He then used Will as a test case for possession and hive mind connection through Season 2. In Season 3, he adapted his approach, using Billy Hargrove and creating a physical avatar of the Mind Flayer, while simultaneously working to siphon Eleven's powers through the Mind Flayer's bite. When those plans failed, he evolved again, developing the Curse technique in Season 4 that allowed him to kill remotely while using each death to open new gates. His ultimate plan, revealed in Season 4, requires opening 4 gates to create enough electromagnetic disruption to merge dimensions, a plan that requires precision timing, careful victim selection, and multi-stage execution. In Season 5, he's collecting 12 children he deems perfect vessels because they're weak in body and mind, explicitly telling Will, "You were the first," and that Will showed me what was possible, what I could achieve. Vecna doesn't react, he orchestrates. Every move serves multiple purposes. Taking Will in 1983 wasn't just about possession, it was about learning, testing, and establishing the connection that he could later exploit. His patient accumulation of knowledge, his willingness to retreat and adapt when plans fail, and his ability to see opportunities years in advance create an opponent who's always 3 steps ahead. He's studying patterns, identifying weaknesses, and building toward goals that won't fully reveal themselves until they're already succeeding. Will's emotional power burst might have surprised Vecna in Episode 4, but Vecna has now seen it, analyzed it, and is undoubtedly planning how to counter or exploit it. Strategic intelligence isn't about being smarter in a single moment. It's about controlling the game board. Vecna laid out the board decades ago, and Will just realized he's a piece on it. Winner? Vecna. Will plays checkers with his heart. Vecna plays 4D chess, with systematic practice spanning decades, and he already knows how the game ends. These comparisons reveal individual superiorities, but the real question isn't about specific advantages. It's about what happens when they all combine in actual confrontation. Borrowed hope versus architectural control. Will Byers ended Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 1 with a triumphant moment, channeling the hive mind to destroy Demogorgons, proving he could fight back after years of being the victim. It was emotionally cathartic, narratively satisfying, and critically important for his character development. It showed that Will the Wise could become Will the Sorcerer, that trauma could transform into strength, and that the weakest child could find power. But emotional resonance doesn't change tactical reality. Will's channeled hive mind abilities would fail against Vecna's comprehensive psychic arsenal. His location-dependent access would be countered by Vecna's ability to kill across dimensions. His instinctive recent discovery would crumble against systematic mastery built through decades of application. His contingent connection would be severed by Vecna's intrinsic, self-contained power. His human physiology would be obliterated by Vecna's transformed resilience and regeneration. His reactive emotional power usage would be outmaneuvered by calculated, long-term orchestration. Most critically, Will's powers only exist because Vecna exists. The moment Vecna falls, or the moment Vecna decides Will is a threat, those abilities vanish. Will is channeling Vecna's own strength, which means Vecna controls the source. You cannot defeat someone using their own power when they can turn that power off at will. The tragedy of Will's situation is that his greatest weapon against Vecna is also the chain that binds him to Vecna's influence. He can't escape the hive mind without losing his ability to fight. He can't sever the connection without becoming powerless. He's trapped in a tactical paradox where his strength is his weakness, and Vecna built that paradox deliberately. Vecna chose Will in 1983 for a reason. He told Will directly in Episode 4, "You were the first. You showed me what was possible, what I could achieve." Will wasn't a random victim. He was a proof of concept, a test case for possession and control that informed everything Vecna did afterward. The fact that Will can now use that connection against him doesn't change Vecna's fundamental advantage. If anything, it proves Vecna's strategic superiority. He planted a seed in 1983 that sprouted into exactly what he needed in 1987. Will Byers is brave, determined, and genuinely powerful within his limited scope. But Vecna is systematic, ancient in experience, and operating on a level where Will's borrowed powers are a tactical curiosity at best and a controlled opposition at worst. The gap between them isn't about who's stronger in a single moment. It's about infrastructure versus access, ownership versus rental, systematic cultivation versus instinctive discovery. Will can fight Vecna's monsters using Vecna's own hive mind, but Vecna is the hive mind. He shaped it, controls it, and can revoke Will's access the moment it becomes truly threatening. If Will Byers faced Vecna directly, relying solely on his hive mind connection without Eleven's support, without his friend's intervention, without external factors changing the battlefield, Vecna wouldn't just win. He'd win by revealing that Will's power was part of his plan all along, that the connection gave Vecna more access to Will's mind than it gave Will access to the hive, and that someone channeling the Master's tools never stood a chance against the Master himself. The game wouldn't be close. It would be a demonstration of why power without ownership, strength without sustainability, and access without control can never match the original architect. Vecna built the hive mind from particle clouds in another dimension. Will learned to tap into it through a connection forged in trauma. That's not a rivalry. That's a fundamental mismatch. If you enjoyed this breakdown of why Vecna's architectural control eclipses Will's channeled abilities, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And check out our analysis of why Max's music defense mechanism actually worked, while other resistance methods failed. Because sometimes the answer isn't more power, it's understanding the right weakness to exploit.